Buenos dias, buenos tardes, buenos noches, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whatever you're doing, as long as it's good to you. You thought we were gone, but we're better than ever and we're back. That's right. This is another episode of Importas Tú California, a podcast that brings to you policy and politics from California to let you know what's going on. I'm your host, Christopher Sanchez, your favorite Chicano in politics. And joining me today is your favorite guest, Carol Gonzalez, your Latina Advocate.
Hi, how's it going?
What's happening, Carol? How you doing?
I'm good. How are you feeling?
Well, there's a lot going on since we've last talked to everybody. But more recently, I'm sure that your DMs and chats have been going crazy given hashtag Latina Power.
Yeah, I wish I was carrying the shirt today, but this is as close as I can get. But I carry Latina Power every day, so, I'm feeling that. Yeah.
And so what have been some of the things that folks have been saying or responding from like your friends or people that you talk to, work with?
Dude, it's been crazy. Honestly, yesterday I was walking around and like just hearing folks talk about it on the streets, I thought it was crazy. But I love it. Yeah, Latina Power, it's everywhere. We got to uplift it. We got to recognize it. And, shout out to all my Latinas out there, doing the thing.
Yeah. When I was watching that clip from the congressional hearing, I can't remember who the representative was. It's not really important. But I was like, as he asked the question, I was like, "Oh, you're gonna be in trouble." And I was like, "Oh, but I don't know if the person was Latina on the other side from the Smithsonian." But I was like, the first thing that came to my mind was like, if my grandma was on that side of the table answering that question. What do you mean is Latina Power good, right? Like,
yeah, literally.
trying to be like, is it appropriate? Of course it's appropriate. Like, that was like one of the first women that came to my mind.
Yeah.
She's not in politics, but she was a powerful figure in our lives.
I love that.
Yeah. But that's been one of the most craziest things. What else has been new with you? I mean, we haven't talked you and I talk all the time, but we haven't talked about politics in a while on the podcast.
Yeah.
Has there been anything exciting outside of that?
Outside of the podcast or the legislature?
Everything, all the above.
It's been crazy. Everything's moved so quickly that I feel like there's a lot, but I feel like we can't catch up on everything,
That's true.
¿Sabes?
Yeah. Well, but one of the
Wait. But what about you? What's going on with you?
Oh,
What's new?
everything
What's
is going
happening?
on. I don't know if you noticed, I got a new haircut. No,
Okay.
no, it's still the same old man haircut.
Yeah.
But no, not a whole lot. I mean, I want to go kick it with the family. We're in the
Yeah.
summer.
Okay.
I escaped the Sacramento heat,
Okay.
the 103, 107 degree weather.
Oh,
Yeah, I went to the beach. It was 77
I love
degrees in
that.
Orange County.
I love that.
Yeah.
I forget that people live like that,
Yeah. It was windy.
Since you're in Sac.
It was the water was beautiful. It was clean.
That's
So
good.
Somebody cleaned it up.
Wow. Honestly, for us, we went to Santa Barbara like last weekend and there were oil spills and there was like tar on the
Oh.
beach. I've never seen that before. And I guess it's like common there, but like the lifeguard like came up and says like, "Hey, be careful with your pups, like there's tar everywhere." I don't know. I thought it wasn't gonna be that bad, but yeah, I ended up shaving them because it got all over their hair.
Oh, dang.
Yeah, it was crazy. I'm like, dang, I've never seen a California beach like that. So just FYI, if you're planning to go to Santa Barbara,
There's oil spills over there. There's tar everywhere.
Tar. Yeah, I
Dang,
didn't
Monique
see that.
Limon. You gotta what's going on with the beaches.
Yeah, honestly, it's kind of crazy. Yeah, but it was still fun. It was good. The weather was nice, so I'm glad you were able to enjoy a beach too.
Yeah, the beauty of being a
Yeah.
Californian.
Yeah, got to hug a tree. Went to the sequoias too.
Oh, really?
Yeah, that was nice. Yeah, yeah. I know you like to camp. So
Yeah.
just bringing it
I
up.
can't give out the secrets though
Oh,
of where I
okay.
go.
Oh,
Yeah,
period.
because
period.
people will ruin it. You know
Yeah,
what I'm saying?
yeah.
I gatekeep a lot.
Okay. A note to everyone: go camping and ask Chris in the DMs where he goes.
Yeah. Let's see if anyone asks.
Yeah.
But a lot of things have happened, So we're recording right now in July. There was a whole primary election, a very heated,
Yeah.
interesting election, as it relates to the governor's race. A lot of different things that happened, but there was a lot of different seats, right? There was, several statewide seats that were up for election. A lot of candidates.
Yeah.
A lot of local races too were up on the ballot as well. So, from kind of the conversations you're having, what were some of the things, that you were hearing from friends and family and colleagues on the election? Like, what was their take
Yeah.
just as they were engaging in the election? Like, what did you hear?
Well, first of all, everyone and their mom ran for governor.
Yeah.
I think,
There was like 38 candidates for governor.
yeah, it was a lot. And I think that in and of itself was like the main thing. Like people would like joke about their ballots, like, oh my God, look at this list, you know? So I think that one was funny, but also like crazy to see live of the amount of candidates on the ballot just for governor. And then I think folks looking for direction online or like, who is everyone voting for or why are they voting for? Um, I think that in and of itself was like its own conversation. And then depending on where you lived, I think there were different conversations going on, whether you were like in the flippable seats versus establishment versus like New Dem or, just that like I don't know. That's kind of the main overview of what I feel like the conversations were like or but what did you hear?
I have I'm from Orange County. There wasn't a whole lot of hot contested races out there.
Yeah.
Our supervisor seat, I'm from Fullerton, so our supervisor seat was contested race. But I think for me, the ones that I was paying attention a little bit more closely to was the LA mayor's race. That
Oh
was very
yeah.
interesting. Nithya Raman, Karen Bass.
Yeah.
They're moving on to the general. But there's and then there was that other guy, whoever that YouTuber is, right? I can't remember his name for some odd reason.
It's
But
crazy.
for folks that share some of their goals, it was like, well,
Yeah.
what's the difference between the two? How can I choose? Versus the very clear difference between the YouTuber and the Democrats that were running, or whatever that person is.
Yeah.
It was Spencer Pratt or something.
Yeah.
So that's an interesting race. It's going to be a more interesting race moving forward. And then I think we've always talked about this. We're always the ones that people call and ask.
Yeah.
It was really funny because every now and then, depending on the mood I was in, people would call me and be like, my cousins be like, "Hey, who are you voting for governor?" And I'll just
Yeah.
pick a random like one of the 38 names, and I was
Yeah.
like, "Oh, Rafael Hernandez."
Why would you do that?
Why not? What
No.
because then when they would be like, "No, seriously," it'd be like, "Well, if gotta have them educated a little bit, do a little bit of their own homework."
No.
And then, well, I didn't do it
I
like
tell everyone and their mom.
I didn't do it like on election day. I did it like this
Oh.
was like the 2 weeks before, and I know they weren't gonna fill out their ballot. They're like, "No,
Oh.
seriously." I
No,
was
it
like,
was like voting day. I was getting my eyebrows threaded. My eyebrow like lady was like, "Who are you voting for?" Like, "Oh, I saw you voted. Like, could you vote for?" I was like, "I'm telling everyone and their mom, go out to vote, get that ballot, turn it in. You know,
"Oh, I mean,
down the ballot too. Because sometimes people just vote for that one person they think they need to vote for, and like, nah, vote
no, no,
like
no.
the
I
whole way
mean,
down."
on election day and all that, like the election week, I wasn't messing around.
Oh, okay,
But
good, good,
the
good.
weeks prior to that, yeah, I would just pick a random name. Whoever had like a good YouTube content or like not YouTube, but like Instagram content for the week, I was like, that sounds nice,
Oh my
right?
God, you're so stressful.
And then because then they would ask me, well, what about these two? And it was
Yeah,
Becerra and Tom Steyer, and I was like, well, what do you like about Tom Steyer? They're trying to help him out and be like, see, you don't have to always come to me, which isn't
yeah,
a horrible thing.
yeah.
I like
I
people.
guess.
I like
Yeah,
people coming to me, but
yeah,
it was cool though. I think at least in my friend group, a lot of folks felt like that they could make a difference because
that's good.
I was like, well, yeah, there's 38 names and there's so many people in California,
Yeah,
and who you vote for could make the difference, right?
yeah,
And we know that always does, but I think
yeah.
seeing so many people and then no one consolidating around one candidate,
Yeah, I thought that was a little crazy
yeah.
that it didn't happen that way.
Yeah, I mean, it didn't before everything happened
I
with
guess,
Swalwell,
yeah.
but yeah, I mean, it was there were the party was split. There
Hmm.
was on the Dem side, and so it made people ask a lot more questions, do a lot more homework, which I thought was good.
Yeah,
But at least the majority of my friend circles are Latino, right?
yeah,
And so it does bear the question, like, what was Latino engagement like?
yeah,
How are they truly engaging us? And I think there was some gimmicks that we saw in some of these larger races,
yeah.
and then there was some true engagement by folks that was like very authentic,
Hmm.
and I think I seen more of the authenticity in the local races,
Yeah,
where they're like, I gotta talk directly to my community, but in these larger races, it's like, man, who's your advisor? Like
yeah,
what's going on here?
yeah,
Like, why'd you get the Jamaica that's made from the powder? You know what I'm saying?
yeah. No, but I will say, even like Now I saw some candidates going to like watch parties and doing the whole thing like during the summer, which I feel like some candidates wait until it's closer or like thinking about how they spend their time. So I know that's like post primary, but I think those are some things that I've seen, and I'm like, I wish more people were willing to do that level of engagement, regardless whether or not it's getting close to election,
Yeah, no, that's true. Um, but it was different. I think there could have been, of course, there's always better strategies than
Yeah.
to engage Latino voters. I do gotta call it out. It was interesting. I don't know what your take is on it, but the Becerra campaign came out with Tio Javier,
Oh yeah.
and I was like I get Theo Bernie, and like that was just kind of seemed very organic,
Yeah.
very natural. Like it,
Yeah.
it kind of picked up its own trend
Yeah.
versus like this is what, and I don't even know if the Bernie camp had like Theo gear,
Yeah.
right? Versus like how Becerra's camp came out
Yeah.
with like the name, and I was like, I guess he's gonna be the Theo. Like if you're gonna give yourself the title Theo, like you're that forced Theo that like I
Yeah.
don't get to choose, versus the adopted Theo, right? Bernie was the adopted Theo.
Yeah.
I was down for Becerra, don't get me wrong,
Yeah.
but I was like, dang, you gotta call yourself. What if I wanted to call you Primo fool? I'm just saying, he's young enough.
Yeah. I love that. Well, I love the primo piece for sure, but I mean, I didn't mind it, honestly.
No,
Yeah.
yeah, it wasn't a
Yeah.
bad thing,
Yeah.
but I was like, dang, you just want to be the authority in my life. Call yourself Theo. What if you wanted to be cool and call you Primo,
Primo?
homie?
Yeah.
I'm just
I
saying.
mean, that's happened to me. I called someone Tio and they're like, "Not primo?" And I'm like, "Oh,
I know. Hey, that's the thing. He doesn't have no gray hair. I
yeah.
was like, you're
Yeah.
young. Bernie has gray hair. He doesn't
Yeah.
even have some hair.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So it makes sense. I'm just saying. So
Yeah.
it's the truth.
That's true. Well, we'll see how people continue to engage with Latinos, because I think sometimes my problem with sometimes how we even ask the question, like, how do you think about like Latino engagement or like what are the Latino issues? And to me personally, it bothers me because all issues intersect with Latinos. And I think when we start fragmenting, like, piecing issues against one another, or like saying this is a Latino issue versus another, I think that's where sometimes like I push back. Like, like we all care about these issues, and if anything, we should be thinking about like that lens of like the impact to Latinos because we are a majority of the state at this point, or like a big portion of a demographic. So to me, every issue is a Latino issue, and but how are you ensuring that every issue reaches Latinos,
Absolutely, and I think and California is such a large state that it's also regionally too. Like
Yeah.
what's gonna resonate with Latinos from San Diego might be a little bit different from Latinos in LA, but for
Mm-hmm.
sure in the Central Valley, only because like in the Central Valley you have your own unique needs.
Very
The
true.
what the primary jobs and industries are very different
Yeah.
than what the primary jobs are in parts of Southern California, and so I think what does that look like, and how is that about, like, right, is
Yeah.
how much can small businesses grow in the Central Valley? Well, we know that they're growing, and a lot of them are Latino, like that.
Yeah.
Small businesses absolutely a big thing in Southern California in the metropolitan and urban areas. So yeah, no, I 100% agree, and right, and I guess that goes to say for anyone out there listening,
Yeah.
you don't always got to put the papel picado out there and like to attract us, right? You
Yeah.
can just talk about real issues, about
Yeah.
that pocketbook issues, and that is our issues, right?
Yeah. That's true. I love it.
Dang. And then I think to close out this part of the segment, was there any important races that you're watching? I know we kind of talked about we brought up the mayor's race a little bit, but was there anything else that you're watching, keeping a close eye on?
Yeah, well, I think we had a whole episode on, how there was redistricting in California, to fight against some of the federal administration's like gimmicks for gerrymandering and all this. So I think now this election, we're seeing whether or not this whole redistricting is going to pay out or not, right?
Yeah.
There's some congressional seats where we had um, very tight seats, right? Whether it was Dem on Dem, Republican on Republican. We have one in our backyard, independent, Republican, Democrat, right? And so I have a few, right? We have the Gallagher versus McGuire seat, right? There was another Democrat that was really close. to McGuire, which is Denny. And so I thought that was really interesting, like the Dems not coming together on that, or,
Yeah.
positioning themselves in a place where it's like, let's tee up someone, right? But I
Yeah.
think we saw that down the ballot, right? Like we saw that with Kylie, Pan, and others, right? That was in our backyard. Um, then we see other Dem on Dem seats like Jimmy Gomez versus Gonzalez Torres. Like that's interesting for me. And then Mai Vang and Matsui also in our backyard, right? Like
Yeah.
establishment versus like a newer progressive. But then also just tying the national climate of like what's happening in New York, and I don't know, just seeing those congressional seats and their fighting and their, the chances of who's coming up and who's not. I just thought that was interesting.
Well, I mean, only since you brought up the Democrats, I'll go ahead and bring up the Republicans. But there is one, I think, probably the most contentious, at least from my point of view, Republican seat. It's a congressional seat, right? So I believe what happened is that they merged the two Republican seats
Oh
into
yeah,
one,
I
right?
didn't even list that
And
one.
so is Young Kim, and I think it's Ken Calvert.
Yeah.
And the messages that are going out
Mm-hmm.
from, historically, Young Kim has represented Orange County, and then historically, King Calvert's represented like San Bernardino,
Mm-hmm.
Riverside areas. I think mostly San Bernardino, and the two county parties are folks from the two counties have been going back and forth, and the San Bernardino is saying that Young Kim and the Orange County Republicans aren't real Republicans, and then Orange County and Young Kim are saying the San Bernardino Republicans aren't real Republicans, and so that's always an interesting fight. I think that my other memory of something like that was in the North State. I think it was a Senate seat, a state Senate seat for Mr. Dolly, I think, was running. The ads that were going back was who was more immigrant friendly, but it
Wow.
wasn't. They weren't trying to say like, "Oh, I am the more immigrant friendly person, so you need to vote for me," because there was two Republicans running against each other.
Oh,
They're like, "This person voted for the California Dream Act. You
that's
shouldn't."
crazy.
Yeah, yeah, it was wild. But that's what the Republican fights look like.
Yeah.
Like this person is more friendly to immigrants. How
Yeah.
dare them? Don't vote for them, right?
Wow.
And then so kind of also an interesting move. I think this is just something I've been seeing in social media recently, whether it's true or not, because I think some people are trying to debunk it. But the California Young Republicans
Yeah.
came out with a statement saying, they don't appreciate the endorsement that some young Republicans in the Central Valley did. They endorsed Adam Gray apparently, but then I've also seen some posts on social media saying like not 100% true, and then other people saying not surprising. So it's been like this whole congressional race with the redistricting. All these races have been very interesting. So like
Yeah.
in addition to what we're seeing on the Dem side, what are the Republicans? How are they looking at this? It would be interesting how they're going to engage voters, right?
Yeah.
And the unfortunate side is so on their side they have to do a lot more hate. Like, oh yeah, like we're more of a hater than the other person, so you should vote for us. That's just wild.
I hope that all backfires, okay, because why are we spewing so much hate in this world?
I don't know. I know, the Democrats, like, at least they're not hating. They're not saying like, "Oh, the more hateful person." They're
Yeah.
they're trying to be like, "I'm the more inclusive person," right?
Yeah.
So that's just interesting.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. I feel like I have my own issues too when it's like dem on dem,
Yeah.
regardless of where you are on the list, whether it's congressional, state, lower level.
Even the local. I mean,
Yeah,
at the
like
local
yeah,
level.
but I feel like once it's like I don't know. I have my own opinions, but
No,
that's
no,
for
no.
another time. That's
No, it's right here
you're
on
like
this.
tell the
Yeah,
viewers.
this is the voice.
No, like for me, I think sometimes when we have folks where it's like damn on Republicans or we have like that swing vote, that swing district, I think sometimes like it's so interesting to me. Like, yeah, you'll count on one extra Dem vote or like one extra Republican vote, but sometimes it's very interesting to me how those Dems won't vote on those hard issues because they are in the swing districts. I'm like, dude, if I was a Democrat in that race, I voted for a Democrat for a reason, you
Yeah.
know? Or if a Republican's in those seats, like they have to sometimes vote with the Democrats. And it's like you got to pick your battles. But to me, I just find it very interesting how like sometimes we really need that Dem to step up. So for those Dem on Dem races, I'm like, now you're not thinking about like a moderate Dem or a progressive Dem. Like you're thinking about how much more can you sway California to move the needle on those harder issues where we really need someone to step up, you know? So that all that to say, elections are very important and people should take it seriously on who they vote for.
And I just do have to fight back a little bit on the local Dem on Dem races.
Okay.
I think we did see, because that's sometimes the people's first opportunity to run, and a lot of
Yeah.
times what happens is that folks who weren't supposed to be in line, right?
Yeah.
They might have been like a community organizer or just a mom who cares
Yeah.
about their child's education, says, you know what, I'm gonna put my hat in the ring against an established Democrat, right? And then what's wrong with that?
Yeah.
Or it's an open seat, and
Yeah.
there's a bunch of young, talented people, or just a bunch of talented people in that area. But that kind of goes into something, about races I was paying attention to
Yeah. Who
in
are they?
in the June primary. Sometimes seats get decided. For example, in LA
Yeah.
City Council, we're very fortunate that Eunice Hernandez won her election outright,
Mm-hmm.
so she doesn't have to go to a runoff. She doesn't have to go to the general in November because she was elected in June because
Mm-hmm.
she got 50 plus one. I think she got like 57% or so
Yeah.
in her election, right? And then, but so what other seats are like that? So that's LA City Council is very unique in that sense. Most other city councils are elected in November. But supervisor races, county school board races, or
Oh
county
yeah.
county board of education races.
Yeah.
I was definitely paying attention to Ricardo Valencia, who's running in Santa Barbara County.
Mm-hmm.
Excellent, progressive, some high school teacher who's really doing a lot of
Mm-hmm.
work for youth. That was a race I'm paying attention to. He's moving on to the November election, and then his general race. I think those are some of the things that I was paying attention to, like those key races that would be decided.
Yeah.
Throughout the state, typically we also see sheriff's races get decided as well,
Oh yeah.
right? And
Mm-hmm.
then there is going to be a runoff, I believe, in LA sheriffs. Unfortunately, the former incumbent, right, is running, and so we'll see what kind of tactics he brings to that election. But yeah, a lot of sheriffs have already, they get their seats again. No one ran against them, or if someone ran against them, they didn't
Mm-hmm.
beat them at all. And so those are like important races that have significant community impacts.
Yeah.
And you have to think, well, what is the responsibility of a sheriff or a district attorney's office? And like those people are prosecuting people. Those people are handling the jails. Those people
Yeah.
are also trying. The sheriffs are supposed to be keeping our community safe, right? And so
Yeah.
there was some judge seats that were on the primary. There's also judge seats often in the
Mm-hmm.
November, but I think people really got to pay attention to some of those. Like, this is going to be decided right now. Like, there is no November,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. That's true. I'm glad you're bringing that up because I mean, growing up in Riverside, just like hearing what my family went through with Bianco, I'm like, damn, like it really makes a difference. And I think we really need to be paying attention to those, especially races where there's no other contender.
Yeah.
And I think even in the legislature, I thought it was very interesting to see 7 legislators like straight up like no fight. It was just like I won. I'm the only one on the ballot, right?
Yeah.
I think that's crazy. Like regardless of what level of government that you're in, I think elections to some extent help others get to know your policies or like better understand where you are. I can guess for folks who've been in it for a long time. For example, like Aguirre Curry, right? Like she's been doing the thing, right? Like I wouldn't want to run against her, right?
Yeah.
So I can see that play out. But when you have young folks who just got started or have one seat under their belt, not to call out members, but like there's a like newly elected Republican member, it was her first seat. I'm surprised like someone else wasn't like, I want to give it a shot.
Yeah, that's true.
So I don't know. I just think it's interesting.
Hey, but I will have to say, for folks, like, it can go both ways, right? It's
Yeah.
one, like, well, how come no one's challenging that person? But two, for the folks who have been incumbents for a while, are
Yeah.
they doing a good job?
Yeah.
And does that say that they are doing a good job?
Yeah.
Sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't. I mean, we all know that the incumbents have a lot more resources and
That's
capability to
true.
get in front of community
Yeah.
members, right? But it bears the question. But community members have made decisions in the past where they do unseat incumbents. So
Yeah.
for anyone out there, go ahead and throw your hat in the ring. We'll be supportive of it.
Yeah.
The concept, maybe not you per se.
Yeah. Yeah, we have a few incumbents this year who are, toss up races, right? We have Hoover also in our backyard, with it's a Dem versus Republican race. Slovensky, Amy Slovensky. Is that how you pronounce her name?
I'm not sure.
Yeah, well, that's the Dem against Hoover. And then we have Clarissa Cervantes versus Leticia Castillo in
Yeah,
Riverside,
that's gonna be a heated race.
That's going to be a close one, too. We have Greg Wallace versus Lilia Namvar, Republican versus Dem. Then we have Jeff Gonzalez versus Ida Obeso Martinez. So, we got some contentious races. And so we'll see what happens in these toss-ups, right? Like, are folks investing in resources? Like, is it that incumbency that will like play a larger role in their race? Or I don't know. It's just interesting to see how it'll play out.
Well, you know who doesn't have to worry about the next election, or at least the immediate next election?
Who?
Gavin Newsom. Yeah, that brings us to talk about the budget.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
This
yeah.
is the governor's last year.
Mhm.
The legislature and him announced the deal, so
Yeah.
the budget has been signed
For now.
For now, right? There's some. It sounds like there might be some bills, some trailer bills that go through, some
Yeah.
extensions of the budget. But there was a lot that happened in this budget.
Yeah.
Some good, some bad. What were some of the things that you're tracking? What were the highlights for you?
Honestly, I feel like my folks did really good this year on the
Yeah.
budget side. So very fortunate. Thank you to all leadership for, giving our community members, some of the things that they were fighting for. So that was great to see. But one interesting point that I saw from the budget was the whole corporate share on the healthcare side
Mhm.
of like teeing that off to the next governor.
Yeah.
I thought that was very interesting. I don't know. What do you think about that?
So I did a brief internship with then Assemblymember Jimmy Gomez, who
Okay.
had carried that proposal
Yeah.
in his first year.
Yeah.
So I actually know a little bit more. I haven't read the proposal
Yeah.
that was put in front this
Tell
year.
us the tea.
I'm trying to tell you the tea, right? Or let me get there. Maybe the horchata depends,
Okay.
right?
Okay.
It's a little bit flavorful, but so it was like a great concept. He got the bill pretty far, I think, and clearly ultimately didn't pass. But back then, the amount of resources that went to oppose it as a bill was significant. It was like the number one bill that folks were writing about, talking about, right? And when I seen the proposal kind of rebirth, and I haven't read the full proposal, so I don't know if it's identical or the
Yeah.
same, but it's very similar in nature.
Yeah. There is no proposal.
Or the concept.
It's the concept. Yeah.
I was like, oh, like this is great. Like, I get to see maybe some of the work that
Mm-hmm.
that one of my former bosses had done before, and it maybe come to fruition. But I was shocked to not hear the same sentiment, but it also tells us how far we've gone,
Yeah.
and how much folks have moved the needle on this concept.
Yeah.
To say like, well, like we should be ensuring people are getting health care, and no one should be dodging that for their
Yeah.
employees, right? No one should be saying, oh, well, let's make sure they get 25 hours instead of 26 hours or whatever it may be,
Yeah.
so they don't get benefits like that. I think given the affordability conversation in California, I think people are like, yeah, that's just not right. Like, you're dipping out of you're making problems worse as well.
Yeah.
Right. And so it is interesting that it was kicked down the road.
Yeah.
Something that the Becerra administration, if he's elected, which I'm sure he will be, is going to have to figure out. But I think that is the current status of it, right?
Yeah.
Who knows if there's a bill that comes about, because there's all kinds of things that the opposition the other folks on the other side are going to
Yeah.
do, right? Are they going to introduce a bill to combat that, right? Because one of the things that they said too, the folks that were opposing it were like, "Oh, this should be a bill. It shouldn't be going through the process right now."
Yeah.
So now, they have a significant amount of time to have those conversations
Yeah.
and be at the table. Will they be at the table? That's a different story.
Yeah.
They often tend to do other things in the interim.
Yeah.
But if they're really serious about this, then they should be working with folks, because we should all agree that healthier people in California make California much better, and
That's
we should
true.
all try to achieve that together,
That's true.
regardless on which side you're on. Everyone deserves, to be able to live prosperously,
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that
That's true. That's big. That's crazy. I didn't realize you worked on that. So that's really cool for
I
our
did.
viewers to hear.
I didn't work on it, but I was like, I
You're in
would.
that era.
I was in the office, and I would like hear some of the conversations. It was great. It was to see the amount of players that were in those conversations, and
Mm-hmm.
the strategy from both sides. Because then I would see the opposition come in and talk to the boss and stuff, and
Yeah.
it was just fascinating, because it was the first big proposal I was able to witness.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I love that.
yeah.
Aw.
Yeah, it was dope. But shout out
Okay.
to Mr. Gomez,
Okay.
even though he's getting challenged right now.
Yeah. Well, that was on the healthcare side, I guess, of something that I had seen.
Yeah.
I think something I bring up all the time is education. I think like pleasantly, like education did really well, you know. I think it puts a bow on all the investments the governor had like made, but also working with a lot of the chairs and their priorities and the issues they cared about. So all to say, like, it was just really great to see all of that come to fruition. One of my clients got to go to one of the bill signings, so like, it made me feel really good, at least to have been able to support them. Um, on the economic side, wait, do you want to add to the education piece? Because I know
Yeah.
you were working on education stuff too.
No,
So
I think there's some investments for immigrant communities in the education space.
yeah,
There's some additional support for immigrant students at K through 12 sites. That it's replicating some of the programs that are existing, or transforming those a little bit more to be better supportive of those students, and newly arrived students, unaccompanied minors, so forth. But at the college side, there was an investment made to support the Dream Resource Centers.
mm-hmm.
So I was able to work on the legislation for several years, actually,
Yeah,
to establish the Dream Resource Liaisons and the Resource Centers, and then now to see a second version of funding come through. It was
yeah,
at the community college level was great, which kind of also goes back to a little bit of the health stuff,
yeah,
right? In the sense of like, well, what did immigrants get
yeah,
this budget? And there were some things that were, when it came to Medi-Cal, wasn't very favorable for
yeah,
immigrants. We continue to see a freeze. Uh, and then one of the folks that I work with closely is Cares in the Central American Resource Center, and there's a lot of things happening with
yeah,
folks who have temporary protected status, TPS, or as we call them, tepecianos, and it looks like some of their designations are gonna possibly not be renewed, because the
yeah,
president has the authority to renew them. And so if they get their legal status pulled out from under their feet because of this president, and it seems the Supreme Court is probably would had a ruling that doesn't allow folks to challenge the removal of those designations. It seems that the president will get his way, and then folks will lose benefits,
yeah,
and then so employment, right, and then wouldn't be eligible to enroll in Medi-Cal if they needed to.
yeah,
So there's going to be possibly thousands of people who will have access to healthcare and then immediately lose access to healthcare, in addition to a bunch
yeah,
of other things, right? So that was a big deal, right? And so while and I think some of the reasons why the legislature was putting in that initial proposal on healthcare was to try to stop as much harm as possible
yeah,
to communities that they love. And it wasn't just for immigrant communities. There was a lot of other communities that were going to be impacted by some of the changes that were being made in Medi-Cal.
yeah. Damn. Yeah, I missed that piece too.
Yeah. No, no, no.
But thank you for circling back to the health piece and then the overlap of like community members too, because I know that the LGBT community too, like they were potentially at risk of losing millions of dollars of grant funding as well. And so just for that to have been, you know, saved at the end, I think that was really helpful to see. I think also teeing back to the administration and the impact that they have too is like there's a lot of grants that like just been pulled, right? Like right under the rug, small cities, small community members, folks who are dependent on a lot of those bigger grants are now trying to figure out like how can we get funded for some of the services that we're providing that overlap with like housing, homelessness, like prevention, healthcare, right? Like so yeah, I'm really glad that you're bringing it up because there's still community members that, you know, continue to face like discrimination to some extent or like the inability to get the services or the aid that they need. So hopefully the legislature continues to, you know, push forward and, you know, find a way.
Yeah, no, that's true. But it wasn't all doom and gloom, right?
Yeah.
Like you're
Yeah.
saying,
Yeah.
there was
Yeah.
other wins. We were talking about the education wins,
Yeah.
but what were
Wait,
some
wait,
other
wait. Can
things?
we put a pause really quick because when you were talking about you know, like immigration and stuff, I think there was a really big win on the Supreme Court side for birthright citizenship.
All
And I
right,
felt like that just teed up, like, you know, like it just came up in that space where I'm like, damn, like, thankfully we got that win, right? Like on the not so doom and gloom. So I don't know. I was a little nervous about that one. There was so much going on across the nation that it was nice to see at least.
half of me was nervous.
Okay.
Only because on one side of my family, you know, I'm like third or fourth generation. So
Girl.
what I'm just saying, so like, you know, I was kind of three times worried, right? Because I'm third or four times worried because I'm third and fourth, right? But on my dad's side,
Yeah.
our fingerprints are still at the Alamo.
Yeah.
So
Oh.
yeah, we were there. There is a like
We're not forgetting the album.
yeah, we'll never forget the Alamo. We're
That's
right there.
great.
We were there.
Yeah.
What side we were on? Hey, I don't know what kind of dismother my ancestors caused,
Stop.
but
No, I think for birthright though, like well, I think like some of my friends were talking about like, dang, like if this passes, they're probably gonna come for marriage equality next, you know?
oh, for sure.
And so like whether or not that's on their docket, you know, I think that could have played like a bigger role of like, well, if this worked, like let's just continue the list, you know?
Yeah.
So I'm very fortunate that like that was the conclusion. Yeah.
But how far would have they gone had they say the case wasn't in our favor? How far would have they gone?
That's true.
Right, and so
Yeah.
that's why I was
Yeah.
like, well, on one side I wasn't too worried
Yeah.
because the border crossed us literally.
Yeah.
But the other side, I was like, I don't know.
Yeah.
Funny enough, I think someone in the family just came across my great grandmother's entry photo
Yeah.
to the United States. Yeah, when
Wow.
she crossed the border.
Wow.
And so we're all sharing that right now. We just got that actually.
That's crazy.
Yeah, yeah.
At least you don't have your dad calling you saying like, "Oh my God, España ganó."
Oh, when they won, did your dad?
Yeah, my dad's like, "Remember that 23andMe we did?" I'm like, "Dad, please don't. Like, we were colonized." Yeah. So yeah, it's funny. Okay, but yeah, let's get back to the
All right,
budget.
rewind.
The rewind.
I feel it's like the chopped and screwed version of the
Yeah.
budget.
No, stop. I mean, we're hitting it, right?
Yeah.
On the impact to immigrants and economic mobility, right? I think something we talk about a few times, like the social entrepreneurs for economic development, SEED.
Yeah.
We always talk about it as SEED, right? And everyone's like, what is SEED? So like SEED got invested again. Very fortunate to have seen 10.8 million invested in the governor's budget. So that was really nice, you know, that our folks got that investment a little bit more than last year. Not exactly what we were rooting for, but, you know, just really glad that the investment is continuing. Folks who are looking to start their small businesses will have access to apply for grants, and folks who, you know, are looking for a little bit of support to either upskill or like, you know, employ more folks or whatever it might be, like have that opportunity to get that additional aid. So really excited about that one. Yeah.
And remind me, and I don't know if you're paying attention to this, but I know there was a proposal by the governor related to folks who are opening small businesses or folks who have
Yeah.
businesses to reduce a little bit of the burden.
Yeah, so LLC cost got slashed by half. So instead of $800, you're paying $400 for any LLC. So if you're thinking about starting your business, is a good time, right? Yeah, because I think it does make an impact of you're like, oh, like I'm thinking about it, but the startup cost might be like something that keeps folks from starting their businesses. So that was also a really good win.
And so why are we talking about it here? And I think it really goes with the work that we've done with seed, but what we do know in California and probably in a lot of other places is that a lot of the small business entrepreneurs happen to be Latino, a lot happen to be immigrant
Mhm.
families,
Mhm.
and we are the fastest growing population of entrepreneurs.
Yeah.
And then so investments where there's going to be funding where they can have seed funding and then also have a little bit of a break is great. And
Yeah.
then if you think about the businesses that we work alongside with,
Yeah.
restaurants, panderias, flower shops,
Yeah.
the lady who sells water, and then paletas, that
Mhm.
those are the kind of places that are the organizations we partner with work and help out. So
Yeah.
it's pretty good. Um, and I think kind of wrap up on the budget conversation. So there was some not so good wins. There were some positive wins. It was the governor's last budget, and
Yeah.
I know one thing I did notice on this being his last budget. Him and the legislature typically take a little bit of their time,
Yeah.
but I think this is a lot later than he's often announced a deal, right?
Yeah.
And what were your thoughts, kind of just on like this being his last budget? Did you approach it
Yeah.
differently? Was it the same strategy? What were you hearing about strategy from your friends or from partners in the legislature?
Um, I guess I feel like I'm gonna need to invoice you for that one.
Oh, is that right?
But every year is a different strategy.
Yeah,
But I think it was a little surprising that it took so long because from what I noticed, the legislature was quick to put out like this is where we stand. I know the Senate, they put out their budget quick and they're like, this is what we're focusing on. I don't know
yeah,
if you remember that, but they were like,
yeah,
here's our document, here's our game plan, here's what we're doing. A little bit earlier than the assembly, but they weren't like that far behind. And then um I just assumed that it was because they were already having like these conversations or that they were further along in their negotiation because it dropped really quickly. And so, yeah, I was a little surprised that it took as long as it did. I feel like they still have stuff up their sleeve, for end of session. Or, I remember in conversations, they're like, we're going to pick up, what was it, Prop 4, the environmental side. They're like, that's coming for sure in August. I don't know what else is coming for sure. But, I know that there were a few member requests that weren't included. Whether or not that's something that they'll consider in August, that's another thing. But if it doesn't feel done, so I don't want to speak too much about it,
yeah,
but I
yeah. I
feel
hear you.
like there's more to come, or at least that's the word.
Yeah, yeah. No, no. I think that's true. I think um, a lot of folks are, I think, what I was hearing when it came to strategy are really just trying to figure out, what the governor really wants, right?
Yeah.
And then, the leadership are the folks who really know, right?
Yeah.
Sometimes that doesn't trickle down to all the members. And so
Yeah.
that's the hard part, right? Is, well, does my priority align with the governor's priorities,
Yeah.
right? Is he really sold on the concepts that I'm also trying to push
Yeah.
forward, right? And then so yeah, it was just interesting. I think that a lot could be said about at least this current version of the budget as
Yeah.
his last budget. Having pushing some of these proposals to the next person,
Yeah.
right? But him being able to lift some of these proposals, I'll say a big win for immigrant communities again in this budget. In his last budget, is he really understood the realities that some folks are living
Yeah.
in, and put an investment of a significant investment in immigration legal service
Oh
funding.
yeah.
And so that is really going to help a lot of folks. I mean, especially a lot of it is deportation defense because people are
Yeah.
just being snatched up, in community and just being
Yeah.
around town, unfortunately. But
Yeah.
that was a significant win for a lot of us.
Yeah.
So we're very happy that he did that in his last budget. It does have some testament to a lot of the work that advocates have been doing,
Yeah.
but also the understanding
Yeah.
that Newsom has on how important legal services
Yeah.
are for immigrant communities.
And to some extent, it's our way to be able to like support or fight back, I guess, what's happening at the federal level, you know?
Hundred
We
percent.
can't take these federal agents' guns, but, like, it's our way, I guess.
Yeah, this is something that's tangible for us.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, for sure.
for sure. Well, we're heading into the last portion of the legislative year. We have 1 month to
That's
figure
crazy.
everything out. The legislature will end at 12 midnight September 1st. So 12 a.m. September 1st.
Yeah.
What are some things that you're looking forward to,
Yeah.
are watching in the legislature as things sail to the governor's desk, or maybe have a difficult road ahead of them to the governor's desk?
Yeah, I feel like there's so much. There's so much. I thought it's also been interesting how a lot of bills have been held, have been stalled. I know there's a slurry of AI related bills that, folks will be working on. So just keeping an eye on how that plays out. I think it'll be interesting. Um, and on the healthcare side too, because I feel like there's some unresolved conversations that still need to be had. But I don't know. I feel like it's hard to point out specific laundry bills, but I know like we're working on a bill for a client. I don't know if you want to talk about it or if there are other bills you're keeping an eye out. I'd love to hear.
Yeah, the in the beginning of the legislature, there was a significant amount of bills
Yeah.
introduced related to immigrant rights,
Yeah.
to fight back ICE,
Yeah.
right? But to also continue to advance the immigrant rights agenda.
Yeah.
Um, and so the conversations in the second policy house have been very interesting. Um, to see what, because now it's like really these bills really start coming to life, like this is going to be a little bit more of a reality in those cases.
Yeah.
And so I think in the second house people do start asking for amendments or looking for things. And so um, the need for some amendments or maybe people laying off on certain bills related to immigrant communities has been interesting, but we'll
Yeah.
continue to watch. I think the floor conversations is going to be important if they're able to bring them up. From what I've also seen, though, I'll say this is a lot of the immigrant rights legislation will probably pass with no problem. I think there might be a handful that might have a little bit of trouble, but as far as confirming votes the first round, but maybe the second round they will. And then I'll just say I think the big uniqueness of this year and this last month is that it's end of a 2 year session, and
Yeah.
for a lot of members this is their first end of a 2 year session.
Yeah.
And in June I was having a conversation in passing with a member, and I was like, oh, I just wanted to like really looking forward to seeing that bill that you have passed. They're like, oh, I dropped it, and like it was like within a moment,
Damn.
and I'm all, oh wow, what happened? They're like the amendments that were gonna be forced on me, or not forced, but that folks
Yeah.
wanted me to take, would have made the bill really bad, and I don't want to put that in print. And I was like, oh, and then but those are the realities versus like, oh, we'll just sit on it for a year
Yeah.
and do it next year because
Yeah.
it's a 2 year vehicle, right? Or like we'll just
Yeah.
park it right now.
Yeah.
It's like those realities are coming, and
Yeah.
for some of them it's their first time having that heartbreak where they're like,
Yeah.
oh no, this bill's really done for we'll have to reintroduce it next year,
Yeah.
which is okay, but like there's no like, oh, I think in the first year everyone's like, oh, we'll just finish the job next year, we'll have conversations during the interim and then start it back up. And that's
Yeah.
it's unique, and I think a lot of new members are feeling some of that uniqueness right now, so they're going
Yeah.
through those own challenges of their own.
Yeah, I know we already just skipped policy committees too, but like the bills that maybe were parked and they're like, should we bring them up again? Like, what are they gonna look like? And for members to have gone through that process for the first time, yeah, that's pretty neat that you're bringing it up too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What is it? They're talking to some, I'm going through my bill trackers and stuff. And then I sent a tracker to one of the partners, and I was like, these are the bills that we're watching that are on the inactive file. They're like, well, why are you sending it to me? I was like, because this is the year that they'll be resurrected.
Yeah.
Like there's a possibility,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And then they're like, oh, okay. I was like, so if you need me to work on any of these, let me know. Like
Yeah.
let's take a look at them.
Yeah.
Do we need a fight? Do we need a support? What is it? But right, because sometimes members are waiting for that last moment because they're on the Senate floor, they're on the Assembly floor. They just need 2 more moves before they head to the governor's desk. So, I think with just 1 more month, it's gonna be a very busy month. It's been very busy this whole year, but a lot to look out for.
Yeah. And we'll see how end of session goes too. Like, how will the Republicans and the Democrats interact? How will leadership keep folks on check?
Yeah.
How will things be moving through?
What bills are going to be held hostage?
Yeah, it's always so interesting to me. Or like what negotiations are happening, like who's getting pulled at the rotunda. I don't know. I just find it all so interesting. I feel like we can have a whole episode on like just watching folks, like as the chaos happens.
Yeah.
Don't worry, we won't do that to y'all, but
Yeah. Well, no chaos for me. Just vote for my bills, you'll be fine.
Yeah. If only we could say that at the bottom.
Well, it sounds like that's for another episode, maybe down the road. And with that, I think that brings us to the conclusion of our episode. And as always, we love to give your final thoughts, your final words. Carol, go ahead and take us away.
Latina power every day in, day out, no, but really on a more serious note is like there are so many important things going on around us that sometimes we get lost in the sauce with the chaos of like what's on the headline, what is currently happening, that sometimes we want to disengage, right? I know personally that's happened to me, and I just hope people continue to stay engaged, continue to find something that they can be passionate and be helpful in. Sometimes it could be as simple as being a mentor to someone else, supporting someone in your family, in your community, in your network, not giving up on the things that you care about. And I say all of this because, I've been having a lot of coffees lately with interns because, it's interim, it's summer recess, when, you try to have those conversations with folks. And as I'm continuing to have more conversations with like younger folks in this space, I'm realizing how, sometimes they just need a little motivation, or sometimes they just want to hear like, it's tough, but shit's gonna get better. Like I'm sure like when you were younger, like as you came up in this space, like you were going through your own things, or like, it's a different era, right? And so just reminding them that a lot of these things are so cyclical, and that the more like we need people like them to be in this space. And whether you're Latina or whatever you are in this space, like, your voice is very important. Your voice is important, impactful. Stay connected and stay loud, because, your power is very important. Yeah.
That's right. No. Thank you for those words. They're really important, and hopefully everyone, all the interns that are going through it right now, all the folks that are barely entering into politics, really take what you said. Those great words. I think for me, my final thoughts is, and I've always been someone to say this, is get involved in the campaign, but if you're not going to get involved in the campaign, do your homework. And I don't mind if you call me, that's cool. And ask me what candidates to vote for, but you're not going to get my candidate the first time. You might have to call me a couple of times. Okay. But I say that's also so you can understand what that candidate stands for, and if they get elected, so you can continue to hold them accountable. Right? I think that voting for someone just because it is helpful for certain folks, but I think voting for someone because you believe in them, and when they break that promise that they have told you, it's important to say, hey, I voted for you because I read this on your website, or because I read this in your pamphlet that you sent me, or we had a conversation, and that resonated with me. I think November we have another big election, a little bit slimmer than what we had in May or in June, but it's gonna, the accountability is also important. So stay engaged and get involved in the campaign, and then go vote. But until then, thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time.
Yeah. Thank you for having me.
Always.
Yeah. Thank you.
This is Christopher Sanchez, your favorite Chicano on politics. You're now tuning into...
And you're listening to...
Importas Tú California.
Importas Tú.